Commander Krell ran his seven-fingered hand over his rigid, green-scaled head ridge as he stared at the approaching transport vessel through the observation window of Void Lock 9. His facial tendrils twitched with irritation. "You're telling me," he growled to his second-in-command, "that this dangerous specimen, this terror of the known galaxies, is something called a human?" Lieutenant Gorks nodded, all four of his eyes blinking nervously. "Yes, Commander. The Galactic Council considers this creature Class X dangerous, extremely unpredictable. And yet you say it has no natural weapons? No acid glands? No retractable spikes? None, sir. No telekinetic abilities? No mind control? No dimensional phasing? No, sir. Though the briefing does mention something called charisma and inappropriate humor in tense situations." Commander Krell snorted. Voidlock 9 had contained the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy for over 3 centuries. 14 separate species had attempted breakouts. All had failed. The facility was carved into an asteroid in the emptiest sector of space, surrounded by disruptor fields and patrolled by automated security drones. Nothing got in or out without his authorization. "This will be the simplest containment of my career," Krell declared. The transport ship docked with a metallic clunk. Krell and 6 heavily armed guards marched to the airlock, weapons charged and ready. The door hissed open, revealing 2 Zornian soldiers 8 feet tall with chitinous exoskeletons flanking a much smaller figure in restraints. Krell stared down at the prisoner. The human looked up with an expression Krell couldn't identify. "This is it?" Krell demanded. This pink, furless biped with the ridiculous hair tuft on top. "Hey there. Jack Murphy, pleased to meet you," the human said, extending its restrained appendages. "Love what you've done with the place. Very abandoned mining facility meets medieval dungeon really brings out the existential dread." Krell ignored the greeting. "Scan him." The guards ran detection devices over the human. "No weapons, sir. Just this device." A guard held up a small metal rectangle. "What is this?" Krell demanded. "It's called an iPod. It contains audio files of something humans call music," explained the Zornian escort. The prisoner insisted it posed no security risk. "Just my greatest hits collection," the human said. "Got some Queen AC did of Beyoncé. You know, essentials for intergalactic imprisonment." "Destroy it," Krell ordered. "Oh, come on," Jack protested. "It's 90% power ballads. How dangerous could that be?" Krell stepped closer, looming over the human. "Listen carefully, creature. You're the first of your kind to be imprisoned here. But I've broken species far more intimidating than yours. Whatever reputation you've built, whatever chaos you've caused elsewhere in the galaxy, it ends here." Jack smiled. Not the nervous smile of a terrified prisoner, but the relaxed smile of someone genuinely amused. "Sure thing, Commander. Whatever you say." Krell felt an unexpected twinge of unease. There was something unsettling about the human's demeanor. "Take him to cell block D, maximum security," Krell ordered. "Full surveillance, no contact with other prisoners." As the guards led Jack away, the human called back, "Just so you know, I'm a sleep talker and a snorer, and I do this weird thing where I sing in the shower. Hope that's not against regulations." Krell watched the human disappear down the corridor. Something felt wrong, Sir Lieutenant Gorks said, interrupting his thoughts. The Galactic Council sent additional warnings about this prisoner. Gorks handed over a datapad. Krell scrolled through the information, his 4-chambered heart growing colder with each line. Specimen human Jack Murphy. Threat level Class X. Warning: subject displays abnormal ability to influence other species through psychological manipulation. 3 separate maximum security facilities have experienced unexplained behavioral changes in staff following contact with subject. Caution: subject appears to spread something the humans call good mood, and laughter effects unknown but potentially destabilizing to order. Ridiculous, Krell muttered, though his tendrils twitched with uncertainty. What harm could laughter possibly cause? "There's more," Sir Gorks said quietly. "The last prison that held him, all 200 guards began exhibiting the same facial expression as the human. They called it smiling." Krell's ridged spine stiffened. "I've studied thousands of species, Lieutenant. No contagion spreads across different biological compositions. Whatever this human did before, he won't do it here. As he spoke, a strange sound echoed through the corridor. The human was whistling. Sir Gorks whispered, "What if this human isn't here because he was captured? What if he's here because he wanted to be?" Krell dismissed the thought with a wave of his hand. Preposterous. No one wants to be in Void Lock 9. But as he returned to his office, Krell couldn't shake the image of the human's unsettling expression. That smile, his most secure prison, had contained plasma beings and sentient gas clouds, telepathic predators and shape-shifting assassins. Surely one small, weaponless human couldn't possibly be a threat. Could he? Dr. Vritrix had studied the galaxy's most dangerous minds for over 30 cycles. The tentacle-headed psychologist prided himself on being immune to manipulation. His species, the Cephali, were renowned for their analytical abilities and emotional detachment. He'd broken psychic warriors, cult leaders and hypno-criminals all without blinking a single one of his 8 eyes. But this human was different. "Mr. Murphy," Dr. Vrix said, adjusting the neural recorder on his desk, "please state for the record why you believe the Galactic Council considers you dangerous." Jack leaned back in his chair, somehow making the uncomfortable metal seat look cozy. "Honestly, Doc, I think it's all a big misunderstanding. I'm just a regular guy who happened to accidentally commandeer a Vrexian battlecruiser." Accidentally? "Well, I was trying to order a space taxi, but my translator glitched. Next thing I know, I'm in command of 50,000 tons of military hardware." Jack shrugged. "These things happen." Dr. Vrix's tentacles twitched irritably. "Mr. Murphy, your file indicates you've escaped from 3 maximum security facilities, disrupted the political structures of 2 solar systems, and somehow convinced an entire Zorgon battle fleet to take a vacation." Jack grinned. The Zorgons really needed to chill out. All that conquering and no play makes Jack a concerned galactic citizen. "This is not amusing, human." "See, that's your problem right there." Jack leaned forward. "Everything can be amusing if you look at it the right way. Even this prison. I mean, have you seen the guard in Block C? The one with the face tentacles that wiggle when he's confused? Hilarious." Dr. Vrix stiffened. "Guard Glorp's respiratory appendages are a proud genetic marker of the Squishian people." "Sure, but you have to admit they look like spaghetti in a wind tunnel." The corner of Dr. Vrix's mouth twitched upward before he caught himself. "This assessment is over for today," the doctor declared, hastily gathering his notes. Outside the interview room, Dr. Vritrix found Commander Krell waiting. "Well," Krell demanded, "what's your analysis?" "The human appears to use a psychological defense mechanism called humor to deflect serious inquiry. It seems harmless, but..." Dr. Vrix hesitated. "But what?" I caught myself almost responding to it. There's something infectious about his attitude. Krell's ridged spines flattened with concern. "Your species is immune to all known forms of mental manipulation." I know. Dr. Vrix's tentacles coiled anxiously. "That's what worries me." Meanwhile, in the high-security mess hall, Jack had been granted his first supervised interaction with other prisoners. The mess hall went silent as he entered, 40 pairs of alien eyes tracking his movement. The serving droid plopped a grey protein cube onto his tray. "What, no ketchup?" Jack joked. The droid stared blankly. Tough crowd. Jack looked around at the assembled criminals, a 12-foot insectoid with scything limbs, a gelatinous cube with visible organs floating inside, and what appeared to be a sentient cloud of red gas contained in a special suit. And then there was Boulder. Boulder was exactly what his name suggested, a massive silicon-based lifeform resembling a pile of sentient rocks. He'd crushed 14 inmates during his first week at Voidlock 9. Even the guards avoided him. Naturally, Jack sat right next to him. "Hey there, Jack Murphy, new guy. Love the whole granite meets gravel aesthetic you've got going on." Boulder's crystalline eyes narrowed. A deep rumble emerged from somewhere in his rocky form. "Boulder crush, puny human." Probably, Jack agreed cheerfully. "But before you do, want to hear a joke?" The mess hall went dead silent. 2 guards reached for their weapons. Even the sentient gas cloud seemed to be holding its breath. Boulder's crystalline eyes narrowed suspiciously. What is? Joke. It's a funny story. Makes you laugh. Boulder not understand laugh. Oh man, you're missing out. Okay, here goes. Why did the asteroid go to the doctor? Boulder stared blankly. Because it had a meteor shower. For 3 excruciating seconds, nothing happened. Then, a sound like grinding boulders emerged from the rock creature, a wheezing, grinding noise that gradually became recognizable as laughter? Boulder understand. Words have 2 meanings. Doctor for health, shower for cleaning, but also space rock and space water. The massive creature's whole body shook with amusement, small pebbles breaking off and skittering across the floor. The guards looked at each other in confusion. One of them, a reptilian officer named Trex, felt an unfamiliar sensation pulling at his facial muscles. His mouth corners were turning upward. He quickly forced his expression back to neutral, but not before the other guard noticed. "What's wrong with your face?" the second guard whispered. "Nothing," Trex hissed. "I think I'm having an allergic reaction." Across the mess hall, Jack was now surrounded by curious inmates, all requesting these strange things called jokes. Even the sentient gas cloud had drifted closer, its red vapors swirling with interest. By the end of the meal period, something unprecedented had happened. Prisoners from warring species were sitting together, making strange vocalizations that the prison's AI identified as laughter. That evening, Commander Krell reviewed the security footage with growing concern. "It's spreading," he muttered to Lieutenant Gorks. "Whatever this human brings with him. It's spreading." "Sir, medical reports 7 guards reporting facial muscle spasms. They're calling it the smile sickness," Gorks reported nervously. "Quarantine anyone showing symptoms," Krell ordered, "and increase the human's isolation. No more group interactions." "There's something else," Sir Gorks added hesitantly. "The prison kitchen reports that meal satisfaction ratings have increased 43% since the human's arrival." "What does that have to do with anything?" "The menu hasn't changed, sir. Prisoners just seem to be enjoying the same food more." Krell's tendrils twitched violently. "Impossible. Enjoyment is subjective. It can't be transmitted like a virus." But as he spoke, Krell noticed Gorks's mouth twitching upward at the corners. Lieutenant Krell said slowly, "Report to medical immediately." "Sir, you're smiling." 3 days after Jack Murphy's arrival, Void Lock 9 was in crisis. 47% of staff now affected, Lieutenant Gorks reported, his own face carefully controlled after 3 intensive anti-smile treatments. "The phenomenon is spreading exponentially." Commander Krell paced his office, ridged spines fully extended in distress. "It makes no sense. We've run every biological scan. There's no pathogen, no spores, no psychic emanations." "Perhaps it's not biological, sir. Perhaps it's," Gorks hesitated. "Spit it out, Lieutenant." "A cultural contamination." Krell stopped pacing. "Explain." "The human doesn't just tell jokes, sir. He asks questions. Personal questions. About families, dreams, favorite colors. Things no one in this facility has discussed in, well, ever." The commander's tendrils twitched thoughtfully. "Psychological warfare. Clever. But we're trained professionals. We shouldn't be susceptible to mere conversation." A soft chime interrupted them, a priority message from Dr. Vreeks. The doctor's face appeared on the screen, and Krell immediately noticed something alarming. The normally stoic Cephali psychologist was smiling. "Bentartsan," Commander Dr. Vreeks said, his tentacles waving with uncharacteristic animation. "I've had a breakthrough with the human subject. He's taught me the most fascinating concept called knock-knock jokes. Would you like to hear one?" Krell terminated the transmission immediately. "Quarantine Dr. Vreeks, and get me Chief Engineer Block." Meanwhile, in the maximum security exercise yard, Jack Murphy was teaching a dozen inmates a game he called tag. "So let me get this straight," rumbled Boulder, who had become Jack's unlikely best friend. "I chase others, touch them, then they become it and chase others. That's it, big guy. Just remember, no crushing. Boulder promises minimal crushing." The yard had never seen such activity. Species that normally avoided each other were running, laughing, and occasionally bumping into each other without starting interplanetary incidents. Two guards watched in bewilderment. "What exactly are they doing?" asked Guard Zik, a tripodal being with compound eyes. "The human calls it playing," replied Guard Mirok, whose skin was starting to develop an alarming bluish tint from holding in laughter. "It seems inefficient," Zik observed. "Maybe," Mirok said thoughtfully, "but they look happy." "Happy is not a security parameter," Zik stated firmly, though his eye stalks remained fixed on the scene. From his hiding spot behind a ventilation shaft, Jack watched the guards with satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete, the prisoners were on board. Phase 2, the guards, was progressing nicely. Time for Phase 3. Chief Engineer Block, a squat quadruped with mechanical augmentations, met Commander Krell in the environmental control room. "You requested an emergency inspection, Commander." Krell gestured to the complex array of systems. "Check everything. Air composition, temperature regulation, sound frequencies. The human must be manipulating something." Block's mechanical eye whirred as he began the inspection. All systems appear normal. Wait, he paused at a diagnostic screen. "That's odd." "What is it?" "Is it?" "The atmospheric scrubbers are operating at 98.2% efficiency. Standard protocol maintains them at exactly 95%. Krell leaned closer. "Meaning, the air is cleaner, more oxygen-rich," and Block tapped another screen. "The ambient temperature has been adjusted upward by 1.3 degrees. It's more comfortable." Could the human have accessed these systems? Block's faceplates shifted in what almost looked like amusement. "Impossible. These controls require level 1 clearance and 16 digits of authentication. Unless what? Unless someone on staff made the changes deliberately." Krell's blood ran cold. "Check the logs. Who authorized these modifications?" Block pulled up the security records. "Multiple authorizations. Guard Trek's adjusted temperature. Lieutenant Gork's improved air quality. Dr. Vreek's authorized modification of sonic background frequencies to something called lo-fi beats to relax study to." "This is worse than I thought," Krell whispered. "It's not just facial expressions. The human is changing behavior." In the prison commissary, a new black market had emerged, not for weapons or contraband, but for pieces of paper with strange markings the human called doodles. Prisoners traded their dessert rations for crude drawings of smiling faces, jokes written in various languages, and instructions for games. Two of the most feared assassins in the quadrant were playing rock, paper, scissors in the corner. When a guard discovered them, instead of confiscating the contraband, he asked if he could play the next round. By evening, Commander Krell had gathered his remaining unaffected senior staff. "This stops now," he declared. "I'm authorizing neural rewiring for all affected staff. We'll purge this happiness from the facility." Security Chief Drac, the only department head who remained unsmiling, nodded in agreement. The human must be using some unknown technology. Perhaps the confiscated iPod wasn't as harmless as it appeared. Could music truly have this effect? Krell wondered aloud. "We should investigate," suggested Junior Officer Pip, who had only avoided infection by virtue of wearing a full containment suit at all times. "Agreed," said Krell. "Bring the device to my office for examination, and schedule the human for enhanced interrogation." As the meeting disbanded, Krell noticed Junior Officer Pip's containment suit seemed to be bouncing slightly, as if the officer inside was dancing. "Officer Pip," Krell said slowly, "remove your helmet." I can't, sir. Containment protocols." "That's an order." Reluctantly, Pip unsealed the helmet. As it came off, the unmistakable sound of Queen's "Another One Bites the Dust" escaped from hidden earbuds, and on Pip's face a huge, unmistakable smile. "Sorry, Commander," Pip said, not looking sorry at all. "But have you ever really listened to human music? It's amazing." Krell backed away in horror. "Quarantine. I need a quarantine team immediately." But when the medical team arrived, all three members were humming the same tune and smiling. "Too late," Commander said, the lead medic, offering Krell a pair of earbuds. "Much too late?" Want to listen? Just once? It might change your life. Krell fled down the corridor, his heart pounding. This wasn't just an anomaly anymore. This was a full-scale invasion. And as he ran, he heard the unmistakable sound of laughter following him, including, most disturbing of all, Lieutenant Gorks's voice calling after him. Commander, you've got to hear this joke about a Zornian, a Cephali, and a human walking into a space bar. Commander Krell had barricaded himself in the Security Operations Center, surrounded by screens displaying the chaos that had engulfed Voidlock 9. In less than a week, his perfect prison had descended into something unrecognizable. Computer, show me cell block D, he commanded. The screen flickered to reveal a scene that made his ridged spine stand on end. Prisoners and guards were engaged in something the computer identified as karaoke night. A Garzillian death beast was warbling through an enthusiastic, if tonally questionable rendition of I Will Survive, while guards and inmates cheered. Show me cell block B. The screen changed to reveal something even more disturbing. Meditation class. The fearsome asteroid miner known as the Pulverizer was leading a session on mindfulness, his usually rage-filled eyes closed in serene concentration. Cell block A. This was perhaps the worst of book club. The human had somehow procured copies of Earth literature, and a circle of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals were earnestly discussing the themes of empathy in To Kill a Mockingbird. Krell's tendrils curled in disgust. Computer, locate the human. Jack Murphy is in the kitchen, Commander. The kitchen? He has access to the kitchen. Culinary specialist Gorba authorized cooking lessons after the human suggested ways to spice up the standard nutrition cubes. Krell felt a migraine forming in all three of his brains. Show me. The screen displayed Jack cheerfully showing a group of kitchen staff how to make spaghetti and meatballs from standard-issue protein rations. Everyone was covered in red sauce and laughing. This is a maximum security prison, not a cooking show, Krell shouted at the screen. Determined to get answers, Krell called an emergency meeting with his last loyal officer, Security Chief Drac, a Vargian warrior whose species was physiologically incapable of smiling due to having mandibles instead of lips. Report, Chief Drac. How far has this contamination spread? Drac's mandibles clicked nervously. Approximately 94% of staff and inmates now show symptoms, sir. The remaining 6% are primarily species without the facial musculature to smile. And behavioral changes. Widespread, sir. Prisoners are teaching guards their native dances. Guards are organizing sports tournaments. Someone started a prison newsletter called The Voidlock Voice with a humor column. Krell slammed all 7 fingers onto the desk. This is a prison. The most secure facility in the galaxy. We don't have newsletters. The first issue comes out tomorrow, sir. I'm told the human is doing a feature called Jokes from Earth. We need to understand what's happening, Krell growled. I want a full scientific investigation. Bring me all the data on human physiology, psychology, and this concept of humor. 3 hours later, Krell and Drac stood before a massive holo display filled with information about humans. It makes no sense, Krell muttered. Humans have no special glands, no telepathic abilities, no pheromones that work cross-species. It must be behavioral, Sir Drac suggested. The file mentions humans are socially contagious by nature. Meaning, they naturally mimic each other's emotional states and spread them to others. They call it empathy. Krell frowned. We have that word in our language, but it's classified as a psychological weakness, not an ability. For humans, it appears to be their greatest strength, Drac said, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. The file suggests they evolved to connect emotionally as a survival strategy. When one human feels something strongly, others tend to feel it too. But we're not human, Krell objected. No, but most species in the galaxy evolved with some form of social bonding. The human may be triggering dormant social circuits in our brains. Krell stared at the data. You're saying he's not using technology or biology to control us. He's just being friendly. Essentially, yes. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Drac's antennae twitched uncomfortably. Sir, there's something else. I've been reviewing the prison's productivity metrics. And They're up, sir. Way up. Inmate on inmate violence is down 97%. Guards' sick days have decreased by 82%. Even the prison's energy consumption has decreased because fewer security measures are needed. Krell blinked all four of his eyes. Are you suggesting this? Happiness is beneficial. The data suggests. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime, someone requesting entry. The door slid open to reveal Lieutenant Gawks, smiling broadly and carrying a tray. Commander. Security Chief. I brought you some brownies. What in seven hells are brownies? Krell demanded. The human taught the kitchen staff how to make them from our standard rations. Their delicious. Gawks placed the tray on the desk. The brown squares emitted an aroma that, even Krell had to admit, was not unpleasant. Take those away, Krell ordered. We're in the middle of a crisis. Actually, Sir Gawks said, still smiling, most of us don't see it as a crisis. Morale is at an all-time high. Even the prisoners are behaving better. They're smiling, Lieutenant. Like maniacs. Is smiling really so bad? Sir Gawks asked softly. When was the last time you enjoyed your job? Krell was taken aback. Enjoy? This isn't about enjoyment. It's about security. But if everyone is happier, more cooperative, and more productive, isn't that the ultimate security? Get out, Krell hissed. And take your psychological contamination with you. After Gawks left, Krell turned to Drac. We need to isolate the human. Put him in solitary confinement, maximum security. Drac's mandibles clicked hesitantly. We tried that this morning, sir. It didn't go as planned. Explain. We placed him in isolation, but within 2 hours the guards assigned to watch him were playing something called 20 questions through the intercom. By lunchtime they'd moved a table and chairs into his cell for, quote, a more civilized dining experience. Krell's ridged spines drooped in defeat. Is there no one immune to this human? Just you, Sir Drac said, his antennae twitching oddly. And me, of course, though I must admit. What? I've been experiencing unusual sensations in my thoracic cavity when the human tells his jokes. Not unpleasant, just different. Krell stared at his security chief in horror. You too, Drac. Is no one immune? Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted. Granted. Have you considered the possibility that resistance is causing you more distress than acceptance would? Krell's tendrils flared with indignation. I will not surrender this facility to chaos and brownies. Of course, Sir Drac said, mandibles clicking in what almost seemed like amusement. Then perhaps we should speak directly with the human. Understand his tactics. Krell considered this. Bring him to my office. Maximum restraints. I want force fields, stun cuffs, the works. Yes, Sir Drac said, turning to leave. At the door he paused. Sir? The brownies really are quite good. After Drac left, Krell stared at the innocent-looking squares. His tertiary stomach rumbled. Hesitantly, he broke off a tiny piece and placed it on his tongue. His eyes widened. It was indeed quite good. The commander quickly composed himself. This changed nothing. He would get to the bottom of this human contagion, even if it meant interrogating the prisoner himself, and no amount of baked goods would weaken his resolve. Even if they were, admittedly, the best thing he'd tasted in 73 cycles. Jack Murphy sat across from Commander Krell, remarkably relaxed, despite the 7 different restraint systems currently immobilizing him. He glanced around the office with interest. Nice place you've got here, Commander. Very Space Dictator Monthly loved the Skull Collection, very intimidating. Those are ceremonial academic achievements, Krell growled. Ah, so you're saying you're both terrifying and smart. Got it. Krell's tendrils twitched with irritation. Human, you will explain what you've done to my prison. Now. Jack raised an eyebrow. Done? I've just been making friends. Is that against regulations? You have systematically dismantled the discipline and order of the most secure facility in the galaxy. I'd say I've enhanced it. Everyone seems happier, more productive, less stabby. Krell leaned forward, all 4 eyes narrowed. That's exactly the problem. This is a prison, not a community, Jack suggested. Yes. No. Prisons aren't supposed to be communities. Jack tilted his head. Why not? The question caught Krell off guard. Because they're prisons. They're meant for punishment and containment. Are they? I thought they were for rehabilitation. Not Void Lock 9, Krell said firmly. The worst of the worst come here. Beings too dangerous to be rehabilitated. Jack nodded thoughtfully. So your solution is to make them more angry, isolated, and bitter through punishment, then eventually release them back into society. How's that working out? Krell's ridge spines flattened. We have an 82% recidivism rate. Meaning 82% come back after release? Sounds like your system is broken, Commander. And your solution is? Smiling. Jack laughed. No, my solution is connection, community, purpose. Things every sentient being needs, regardless of how many eyes or tentacles or mandibles they have. Krell was about to deliver a scathing retort when the door chimed. Security Chief Drac entered, followed by Boulder and Dr. Vrieks. All three were. Not smiling exactly, but definitely not looking appropriately serious for a high-level security meeting. What is this? Krell demanded. Why is a prisoner in my office? Boulder has important information, Drac explained, mandibles clicking excitedly. And Dr. Vrieks has completed his psychological assessment of the human. Fine, Krell sighed, waving a 7-fingered hand. Proceed. Boulder stepped forward, his rocky form rumbling. Boulder was angry for many cycles. Boulder destroyed. Boulder hurt others. No one ever asked why. And why were you angry? Krell asked, not particularly interested. Boulder was lonely. Boulder's species lives in clusters, sharing vibrations through crystalline structures. In isolation, we break down. Krell blinked in surprise. This was new information. Human asked Boulder about Boulder's feelings. No one ever did that before. Human taught Boulder jokes and songs, now Boulder's crystalline structure stabilizing. Boulder not angry anymore. Boulder happy. Krell turned to Dr. Vrieks. And your assessment, Doctor? The Cephali psychologist's tentacles waved excitedly. It's fascinating, Commander. The human hasn't introduced any new behaviors, he simply reactivated dormant ones. Explain. Most sentient species evolved with social bonding behaviors, play, laughter, shared experiences. But our modern interstellar society became so focused on efficiency and security that we bred these behaviors out of our cultures. We classified laughter as disruptive, play as inefficient, friendship as compromising. Because they are, Krell insisted. Dr. Vrieks shook his head. No, Commander. They're essential. My research shows that planets with higher happiness indices have lower crime rates, higher productivity, and better health outcomes. What the human calls fun isn't a weakness, it's an evolutionary advantage we abandoned. Jack nodded. Humans learned this lesson centuries ago. We tried building societies based solely on order and efficiency. They always collapsed because they ignored a fundamental truth: sentient beings need meaning beyond survival. Krell's tendrils curled skeptically. And karaoke nights provide meaning. They provide connection, Jack explained. When beings share experiences, even silly ones like singing badly together, they build bonds. Those bonds create community. Community creates belonging. Belonging creates purpose. It's not the karaoke itself, it's what happens when people do it together. The room fell silent as Krell absorbed this. Finally, he turned to Drac. And your report, Security Chief. Drac's antennae twitched excitedly. I've analyzed all security metrics since the humans' arrival. Inmate-on-inmate violence down 97%. Escape attempts 0. Contraband reduced by 84%, if you don't count friendship bracelets. Friendship bracelets, Krell repeated weakly. The Zornian warriors in Cell Block C have been teaching others their traditional crafts, Drac explained. Turns out their fearsome armbands were originally ceremonial gifts to strengthen community bonds. Krell slumped back in his chair. So you're all saying that by making everyone happy, the human has actually improved the prison? Not just improved it, Dr. Vrieks said, tentacles waving excitedly. Transformed it. We could become a model for a new kind of correctional facility. Jack smiled. Happiness isn't just a feeling, Commander. It's a revolutionary act. Happy beings don't want to hurt others. They want to connect, create, contribute. But this facility has protocols, regulations, a reputation to maintain, Krell protested. Does your reputation matter more than results? Jack asked gently. Boulder rumbled in agreement. Boulder was sent here because Boulder was destructive. Now Boulder teaches rock painting classes. Which makes more sense. Krell's ridged spines drooped as the weight of revelation settled on him. Had he been wrong all these years? Was order without joy ultimately self-defeating? He looked at Jack Murphy, this soft, fragile human who had somehow upended centuries of correctional philosophy with nothing more than jokes and brownies. Why? Krell asked finally. Why did you do this? Jack's smile softened. Because that's what humans do, Commander. We connect. We share, we transform. Not through force, but through friendship. It's our superpower. But you're a prisoner, Krell said, confusion evident in his voice. Shouldn't you be trying to escape? Jack laughed. Who says I'm not exactly where I want to be? And in that moment, Commander Krell had a terrible, wonderful realization. The most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their technology, their resilience, or even their adaptability. It was their ability to make you care. 1 month after Jack Murphy's arrival, Void Lock 9 received its first ever delegation from the Galactic Council. The 3 stern-faced counselors were greeted in the docking bay by Commander Krell, who was smiling. Welcome to Void Lock 9, Krell said. His ridged spines relaxed in a way that indicated contentment rather than vigilance. We're honored by your visit. The lead counselor, a multi-eyed Vex nor named High Counselor Zeb, looked around suspiciously. We received concerning reports about this facility, Commander. Reports of irregularities. Indeed. What kind of irregularities? Prisoners. Smiling. Guards participating in recreational activities with inmates. Something called a talent show. Krell nodded. All true, Counselor. Would you like to see the results? Without waiting for an answer, Krell led the delegation through the prison. What they saw astonished them. Former enemies working together on community projects, guards and prisoners engaged in respectful conversation, and an overall atmosphere of ... Was that contentment? What is the meaning of this? Demanded Second Counselor Droom, her crystalline form vibrating with agitation. This is meant to be a maximum security prison. It still is, Krell assured her. No one has escaped. In fact, no one has even tried. And our recidivism simulations project had dropped from 82% to less than 15%. How is this possible? Asked Third Counselor Vex, a gaseous being contained in an environmental suit. I believe the human can explain better than I can, Krell said, leading them to the prison's newly renovated communal area. There they found Jack Murphy, surrounded by a diverse group of aliens, teaching them how to play chess. When he saw the delegation, he stood and bowed respectfully. Council members, welcome to what I like to call the great experiment. Pull up a chair, we just made snickerdoodles. High Counselor Zeb's tentacles curled with distaste. Mr. Murphy, we have reports that you subverted this entire facility. Jack grinned. Subverted? I prefer enhanced, but don't take my word for it. Ask anyone here. The council members turned to Boulder, who was carefully moving a knight on the chessboard. Boulder was Rage Monster. Now Boulder is assistant arts teacher and mediator for conflict resolution. Boulder still dangerous, but now Boulder uses strength to protect, not hurt. Similar testimonials came from around the room. The notorious shapeshifter known as the Faceless One now ran identity workshops, helping others connect with their authentic selves. The Vrexian warlord who had terrorized 3 systems was organizing an interspecies orchestra. This is unprecedented, admitted Counselor Droom. But surely discipline has suffered. Commander Krell stepped forward. Actually, Counselor, we've had to develop a new understanding of discipline. Before, we enforced rules through punishment. Now, the community largely polices itself because everyone has a stake in maintaining the harmony they've created. It's the difference between forced compliance and willing participation, Jack explained. The first is always fragile, the second incredibly robust. High Counselor Zeb's eyes narrowed. Mr. Murphy, our intelligence suggests you allowed yourself to be captured and brought here deliberately. Is this true? Jack's smile widened. Guilty as charged. Counselor, explain yourself. Humanity has been watching the galaxy for a while. We noticed something troubling. Species across the cosmos were stuck in cycles of punishment and retribution. The prison systems were creating more criminals than they reformed, so humanity sent you. What an agent of chaos. Jack laughed. An agent of change. My mission was to demonstrate that rehabilitation isn't just possible, it's more effective than punishment could ever be. The counselors huddled together, whispering.